We'll start with these two books on trauma therapy and then two more on healing your inner child, followed by an entire therapeutic adventure through the stages of human consciousness until we arrive at transpersonal psychology on this side. These are 24 of my all-time favorite books in my therapy toolkit, which I'm going to put down for just a moment so I can explain what we're trying to do in this video. And they're the best books from over 600 psychology books that I've read, and I have divided them into 12 distinct categories of self-healing and self-actualization. I'm going to give you them all for free because I want you to have this year as the best year for your personal mental health. It's going to be a fun video. I'm going to be as quick as I possibly can, and let's dive straight into it with the first category, trauma healing, with two books which are non-negotiable. You must read these. You've got Complex PTSD by Pete Walker, and you've also got Trauma and the Soul by Donald Cowshed. If you have wounding, if you have pain, if you have anxieties and depressions and other symptoms and addictions which you know are connected to that unresolved wounding and that unresolved pain, then you're going to want to read these books. You might not identify as someone who's got complex PTSD or someone who's heavily traumatized, but books like these will give you tools and new perspectives to go to the absolute root of your own dysfunctions. I'll put these books down and explain a little bit more before moving on to inner child healing. You need a foundation to move from. You could start with inner child healing, and maybe you're more of a spiritual person that wants to do more spiritually inclined therapies or really cognitive therapies like Jungian therapy or shadow work. But I strongly suggest that you start with trauma therapy. Trauma and the Soul, one of the books that many of my clients say is their favorite trauma book because of how it deals with dissociation. But fundamentally, if you're going to read any books this year in regards to healing your trauma, start with these two. They will create a solid foundation, and you need to have that solid foundation before you can go any further. But let's move into the second category now, which is inner child healing, bringing out Healing the Child Within by Charles Whitfield and Homecoming by John Bradshaw. These two books, published a few years apart in the 1980s, the late 1980s to be specific, are the two best inner child healing books that I've ever encountered. And I can say that with confidence because I've tried to find better and I just can't. When you're looking into early years damage and you're looking at the pain of the past, it's all about reconciling the wounding and the agony and the unmet needs of your inner children, your inner toddlers, your inner preteens, your inner teenager. There's that whole spectrum between about 0, or even in utero if you want to go back that far, and up to about the age of 16, 17, or 18, which have different types of damage and different types of unmet needs and lingering resentments which you gradually work through over time. If you're ignoring your inner child work, you're not going to be able to create even more of a safe, reliable internal mental health landscape to then go into more challenging issues in regards to existential anxieties or what do I do with my life in terms of my career or my romantic relationships, because you will have a terrified little child somewhere deep within you, very much like the cover of this Healing the Child Within book. And you're not listening to that vulnerable part. You're not paying attention to the part which is waiting for a conversation, which takes us to the third category from my therapy toolkit, which is parts work. Let me bring out these books for you right now. There's actually way too many books in there. So we've got Embracing Ourselves by Hal and Sidra Stone, and we also have Subpersonalities by John Rowan. These two books, and also this wonderful diagram on the front with the many parts and the many aspects of our multiplied psyche. They're high level. This one's very basic and very foundational, but also extremely practical. This one is more of a humanistic psychology approach towards the actual psychological mechanics of why you get split in the first place. If you've heard of things like fragmentation or repression, then you're going to want to read Subpersonalities by John Rowan. Later on in your journey, you can go into things like internal family systems, but even inner child work is an aspect of parts work. Parts work is this almost catch-all phrase that can cover any element of internal subpersonalities or isolated compartmentalized psychic structures. And if you're doing very foundational trauma work, you can work with a particular age, i.e. the inner child, but as you start to mature along your trauma healing journey, you can go into archetypal psychology and also look at the specifics of the light and dark side of particular parts, which is very much one of the major themes in shadow work. And I'm moving so rapidly through this video, as you can tell, because I don't want to keep you for too long. I just want you to buy these books. They are the absolute best books that I could possibly recommend for you this year. You can read 2 books per month. You can finish this year with the best mental health of your life, but you're going to need to do the work. Let's move on to the 4th category, which is somatic therapy. Somatic therapy is trending right now, not just in terms of hashtags, but in terms of popularity, of practitioners choosing modalities which speak to a deeper intuition that the mind and the body are not separate. You've got Peter Levine, who's very popular, his In an Unspoken Voice. He is the founder and the facilitator of somatic experiencing. And I also recommend that you read Dr. Arthur Janov and The New Primal Scream. These 2 books together are a wonderful foundation for your somatic therapy journey because it looks at how your body remembers the pain. You start to work with the somatic disruptions, all of the clammy hands and the bad eyesight and the dry mouth and the anger in your chest and the knotting in your stomach. You start to listen to the message behind the scenes. You've built your foundation with the initial trauma therapy philosophy. You've gone into parts work and you psychically understand the inner child and various subpersonalities. You're then going to want to work with your body directly. There are many approaches towards somatic therapy. I'm only giving 2 books in this therapy toolkit video for the sake of ease of access, but you need to start with just that mending between mental and physical, because if you haven't healed that split, you're not going to be able to call yourself integrated. It seems almost corny to say something like that, but I can guarantee that you will get to a point if several months from now you've read all of these books in this therapy toolkit and not focused on somatic therapy or the next category, which is bioenergetic therapy, almost a niche within the somatic therapy sub-niche. You're going to be full of ideas and concepts and theories, but you're still going to be anxious or depressed because your body remembers the pain, or maybe even just the abandonment from childhood. If your mom or your dad wasn't there for you or didn't give you the right kind of love, you're going to have that inside of you, and there is a chain of addictions and dysfunctions which tend to arise as a result. You need to look at your body because your body remembers. Start with somatic therapy if you're ready to go into that deeper trauma healing space. And once you've established the basics with these 2 books, I advise you to move into the next category, which is bioenergetics. Bioenergetics is something which has many different faces, and often on this channel I recommend people like Alexander Lowen. I've got all of his books and they are fantastic, but for the sake of making a bit of a more novel video, I've got 2 books which I don't recommend too often. We've got Life Streams by David Boadella, and we've got Core Energetics by, I think, John Piericos. First mistake of the video, but anyway, you can see these right here. Take a screenshot if you like. They are fantastic. What you're doing with these books is you're taking the foundations of somatic therapy and taking them to more of a psychologically complex level. Let me just bring you out a diagram. Hopefully I can find this quickly. Something like this. Now, if you've never seen bioenergetics before, this isn't going to make any sense. If you've already read someone like Alexander Lowen, this is a goldmine diagram looking at the different character types and energetic dysfunctions. Hopefully that comes up within a bioenergetic perspective. Not sure if that came into focus, but you're going to have to read the book for yourself. These 2 books are more of the advanced level somatic therapies, where you're going to be learning the exact origin and the healing pathway for something like addiction, something like an intimate disorder where maybe you can't get it up, or maybe you don't want to get it up, or maybe you never create the situation of even wanting intimacy in the first place because you're terrified of love. All of the secondary benefits and secondary drawbacks of listening to the body or not listening to your body. Bioenergetics is the study of the energy within, and when you're taking a self-healing and self-actualization perspective on your own growth this year, you would be sorely missing out if you didn't take the time to read these masters. You can start with Alexander Lowen and a book like The Voice of the Body, which I'm not recommending in this video, but also try out these 2 books. They're less known, they're more of a rare kind of recommendation, but that's what I'm trying to do in my therapy toolkit, give you things that you haven't seen before. And at this point, we're at the halfway moment, which is what you probably expect from a video like this. I've given you trauma therapy, I've given you inner child work, parts work, Somatic Therapy and Bioenergetics, but let's make it super practical with the next two topics, and these are some of the most popular topics of any healing teaching that I've done on the internet, so I thought I better give some recommendations. Category number 6, love and relationships. Let me go to my toolkit just down here. It's getting a little bit emptier, I think, at the front. We've got Facing Love Addiction by Pierre Melody. This is a book that I recommend to my clients on a frequent basis when they say, hey, how can I deal with romantic projection? This is a nice practical how to stop falling in love with people who are no good for you. And I'll put it over there so we can access the next book, which is The Invisible Partners by John Sanford. These two books together try and navigate this handful of wisdom. Put it back down on the side. These two books together are basically Romantic Projection 101 and how to heal your intimate disorders. You're not going into advanced tantric territory, and you're not looking at conscious relationships, which is something that I've explored even recently in my shadow work playlist, which you can find linked down in the description. These are books which help you to understand the everyday dysfunctions and the deeper reason for why you keep falling in love or falling into lust with the wrong kinds of people, and how you can break that pattern once and for all. Because your mental health is, to a significant degree, dependent upon your close relationships, and one of the most important close relationships is your romantic partner. I don't want you to be trapped in toxic loops of fascination and fixation that lead into these shadow boxing dynamics where you're either passively or openly attacking each other, or otherwise waiting for Prince Charming or the ideal good girl of your dreams to come along and make your heart feel good again. You need to understand romantic projection. If you don't understand this, you can expect that the next year, the next 5 years, and the next 10 years of your love life are likely to repeat the same pattern, be it in the same relationship you're in with your current partner, be it with your next partner, or the next 3 partners who are all basically emotional copies of the same dysfunctional person, which you are shadow dancing through because of your own unhealed dysfunctions. And that's not to get at you. I know this firsthand. I remember when I was doing this work for the first time, and it blew my mind. It blew my mind. Why do I go for these kinds of people? Why was I so hooked on bad energy? Well, of course, we seek that which we have inside, and if you haven't done your trauma healing, you're not going to be able to be in a truly conscious relationship. But let's move into another very practical and very triggering topic, which is if you're looking at the issue of love and intimacy, well, we also need to look at the issue of money. Going to pick up the toolkit, found it just down here. Something that you might not have expected from a video like this, because you'd think it's a self-actualization and self-healing video. And yet, let's be real. If you're not making money, if you're not making enough money to meet your needs, if you're not in the right career, and if your business isn't going very well, you're not going to be very mentally healthy at all. I haven't got any good books, and I really tried. I've got an entire shelf of business books I've curated over the years, about 40 books in there. But they're all very practical. They're to do with coaching and marketing and sales and business structures and various ways to use the internet. I didn't think they'd be so useful for a video like this, and the majority of people who are probably still watching at this point probably have some kind of desire to have a conscious career. You don't want to be spending decades doing something which drains your soul, and you don't want to be re-traumatizing yourself in toxic workplaces, which means that you might have a bit of an entrepreneurial spirit, or at the very least, the dreaded side hustle mentality. Let's not go into cliches, but I'm going to give you 2 books that were really important for me in my own career building journey and also healing my relationship to money, because you can create this incredible narrative about my money story and money affirmations and money flows to me like a river through the mountains, and that's great. But you also need to be making enough money to be able to feel fulfilled and have savings and have interesting experiences on the horizon this year. And these are 2 books that really did it for me. I'm not sure if they're going to be useful for you, but if you're a coach, you're a therapist, you're a teacher, you're an entrepreneur, you're someone who's trying to move up within your own company and think a bit differently, I recommend Company of One and Oversubscribed. Or is this Key Person of Influence? I think it's Key Person of Influence. It is Key Person of Influence. Daniel Priestley also wrote a book called Oversubscribed. I knew I would do this at one point in the video. Let me reach down to the business shelf. He wrote this book. Oversubscribed. Couldn't quite do 24. We've got Key Person of Influence and Oversubscribed. Daniel Priestley is probably my favorite business teacher because he's showing you how to leverage your knowledge in an authentic way without scamming anyone or otherwise taking yourself into shady corners of the internet and trying to extract money from very vulnerable people. These books, namely these two books, are what I want you to read if you want to heal some of your money wounds at a very practical level, because you need a business education. You can't bypass financial literacy. And I'm going to make a little bit of a strong statement here that you are bound to fall back into old traumatic patterns, especially with regards to addiction and escapist behaviors, if you haven't got the amount of money that you need to feel safe. You cannot bypass the money wound. If you are living in poverty, you are way more vulnerable for other issues discussed in this video, so please don't sleep on this. We're moving now back into the more therapeutic space with category number 8, and this is at the higher bands of human potential. We are looking at consciousness studies. Reaching down here, these are two of the fantastic, these books are honestly fantastic. So this is Transpersonal Psychology, but also Consciousness Studies. We've got Ken Wilber and A Brief History of Everything. This is the integral theory of consciousness. And we've also got Spiral Dynamics. You've probably heard of both Spiral Dynamics and Ken Wilber before. I've discussed them many times on this channel, and the reason I'm recommending them to you, the reason that I want you to make time to read quite high-level concepts about the evolution of consciousness from lower stages, some would say lower vibrations, up to the higher vibrations of self-actualization, is that you need to understand the journey. At least theoretically, no map is the territory, but these are two of the best maps I could possibly think of. Spiral Dynamics, as you can see on the front, you've got this spiral of consciousness expanding upwards, and in something like A Brief History of Tomorrow, if I can find a good diagram quickly, we've got the holonic nature of consciousness. Here we go, outlined and diagrammed. Hopefully that comes up. We've got wonderful practical diagrams in this book. I remember the first time I read this years ago, I was sat down at a kitchen table and my mind was blown by the sophistication and the nuance of Ken Wilber's work, bringing together dozens, if not over 100, different philosophical and theoretical systems to help you understand your own self-unfolding. Yes, it's fantastic to heal your trauma. I don't want you to have pain. I don't want you to feel crappy. But I'm also the kind of person that asks, well, what's next? I don't want to just not feel bad. I want to reach some real high potential here, and not in a way which is spiritually bypassing or a way which is going to lead me into all kinds of delusions and grandiose fantasies. I genuinely want to understand what it means to have high ethics, high morality, and a great sense of vitality from top to bottom. And integral theory, spiral dynamics, and a variety of other consciousness studies are the number one, well, not number one category, it's technically the number 8 category in this video, but the number one kind of invitational gate to something more. Don't do yourself the disservice of not reading more challenging books like this, because the rest of this video is going to get even more esoteric. Now we're moving into the real higher bands of consciousness. Let's move on to number 9, and that is Transpersonal Psychology. As you saw at the very beginning of this video, in the therapy toolkit. Can't believe I'm using an actual toolkit here. Maybe if you really do need to work on your fragmentation and you decide you want to go back a step, you can just get out a saw and fragment yourself all over again if you really want to practice this stuff. I'm going to put the saw down for just a moment. We're going to go into Transpersonal Psychology. I've got 2 books here for you to read, and then I'm going to put the toolkit down because, surprise, surprise, I couldn't fit all 24 books inside of this little red container. They're actually on the shelf in front of me, but metaphorically, let's continue. Psychotherapy and Spirit by Brant Courtwright, the best introduction to transpersonal psychology that I have ever encountered. This is a goldmine of upper consciousness. You'll understand the whole theory, the main figures, and how to therapeutically work with your own soul in a very practical way, and also the primal wound. Now, original people who've seen me on this channel for many months or many years, you know how much I love this book. This book does the work of at least 5, if not 10 books, and as you can see from the subheading, we're looking at similar themes from before. We're looking at addiction and wounding and trauma, but from a higher perspective. We've got a variety of incredible diagrams, an incredible psychosynthesis-inspired egg diagram in particular right here. I've done a variety of videos on this. You can see my shadow work playlist in the description for a 25-minute video on that exact advanced topic. I'm not going to say any more. If you like the look of these books or you're already glazing over, you've made your choice. If you are glazing over, please challenge your intelligence. Please reach for something a little bit more aspirational, because this is going to bring you out of the self-development rabbit hole of endless YouTube videos. I don't know how you found this video in the first place. You can go towards real depth with someone who's a real teacher. Honestly, these books, please buy the books. Let's go into a few more fun. I've got 2 more fun categories to come through, and then 1 more category at the end. I'm heartbroken that people will sleep on these, but please buy them. Honestly, please buy them. It's a disservice to your soul and to your own intelligence if you don't push the limits. Taking a breath now. It's been a roller coaster of a therapeutic journey. We've got 2 more categories which are a bit more controversial. And I say controversial because although the majority of people who watch my channel are spiritually inclined, there are a variety of religious belief systems within the audience that I teach to and speak to. So these ones might seem a little bit too new age or maybe demonic, but I would be doing you a disservice if I didn't share some of the more controversial, more spiritual books, which have also personally been useful and very educational for me on my journey. So the number 10 category is energy healing and extrasensory skill development, I suppose. We've got Hands of Light by Barbara Brennan. This is, without a doubt, the 1989 classic, the best book on energy work and energy healing that exists in the world. People who know energy healing and Reiki, they know this book. And you've also got Kurt Leland with The Multidimensional Human, which is a practical guide to psychic development and extrasensory, just astral projection and dream work and developing intuition. If you're interested in strengthening your intuition and you want to learn how to literally tear books in half because you've read them so much that it's just, you're going to have to... I'm trying to do so much. Every single book in this video deserves at least 20 or 30 minutes, but a book like this is going to show you all of the various energy bodies and auric patterns. If you've never gone into Reiki, you've never looked at energy work, and you're willing to expand your consciousness just a little bit, this is the least hippie, least new age. She worked as an engineer at NASA in the 1980s. This is very scientifically rigorous, as much as scientific as you can get within the current bands of acceptance of what is and what isn't scientific. 2 more controversial books for you, and we're going to continue into even more controversy with altered state therapies and past life therapies. 2 more books, bringing them out. We're almost at the end now, but don't fall asleep on me. We've got Other Lives, Other Selves by Roger Walger. This is a Jungian psychotherapist who specializes in past life therapy, and also Christopher Bach's book, Dark Night, Early Dawn. This is one of my top 10 transpersonal psychology books because it deals with a variety of altered state experiences, both sober and not so sober, facilitated and self-guided. You'll want to read a book like this while reading a book like this, because you'll be able to take yourself on experiential journeys into deeper consciousness. I'm personally going on 5 years sober. I don't recommend to any of my clients to do substances in uncontrolled settings, but I have worked with people who've been off in the Amazon and they've drank plant medicine, and then we've had sessions afterwards, or they've been off on a different ritual somewhere else in the world and they've had a different type of substance, and I've seen how their consciousness can shift. I can always say, hey, I think that if we're going to work together, stay sober, see what you can do with your own willpower and your own agency, because generally speaking, you can then rely upon that in day-to-day living. You can bring yourself into an altered state almost upon command, and that's very useful for inspired creative energy. But I understand that not everyone wants to do it my way, so I ultimately support the autonomy of the individual I'm working with, especially if they have an exceptional opportunity for something which could be a real breakthrough moment in their life. Past life therapy and altered state therapy are getting more and more popular these days, and if you're ever concerned about the sensationalism of seeing short form content of people purging, or they're on their 100th plant medicine journey, and you feel like this might be just a little bit too sensationalist, a little bit too grandiose, turn towards masters who were writing before this whole internet buzz. I mean, this book literally written before the internet. The majority of books in my library, they are written pre-internet, because there is a quality of consciousness in older books which isn't about marketing and sales and strategic development of communities and branding and a whole nother rabbit hole I could go down. Get these old books and heal your old wounds. Bringing it all now to a crescendo from my therapeutic toolkit with arguably one of the most important therapeutic modalities for anyone who's looking for a wide but also deep approach to their own psyche. We're talking about Jungian psychotherapy or Jungian therapy. I want you to start with a book like Jung's Map of the Soul by Murray Stein. If you've seen me before, then you've seen Murray before, and you can trust Murray with your soul, because I guarantee this is the best introduction on Jungian therapy that exists. I can say that hands down. You are not going to find better. This is fantastic. If you want to go deeper into Jungian psychology without getting lost again on the internet rabbit holes of kind of clickbaity things here and there, or random clips from random professors and random entertainment with a Jungian spin, a variety of quotes from Carl Jung himself, Jung's Map of the Soul by Murray Stein, and a wonderful kind of strangely paradoxical beginner book, Meeting the Shadow essay collection, with somewhere between 40 and 50 individual contributions covering the whole range of shadow work. This book features in the first module of my shadow work library course. If this is your first time seeing me, I put together a course based on all of this frankly obsessive and insane research. You can see the full playlist down in the description. It's over 5 hours of content, some of the best content you're going to see, and you're going to see me break down this book in way more detail, because the shadow is not a singular thing. You've got shadow entities, shadow territories, and shadow behaviors. You've got various levels of shadow dysfunction and shadow potential, and you've also got the golden shadow and dark and more malicious shadows. But don't neglect your shadow, whatever you do. Make sure that you're doing some shadow work, because all of this journey into your own consciousness requires you at the center. But you're fundamentally flawed. I'm fundamentally flawed. We're not going to see all the way beyond the veil. You need something like Jungian psychology and shadow work in particular to be able to push your boundaries of perception. Maybe you'll do it through altered states. Maybe you'll do it through energy healing. Maybe you'll do it through somatic therapies and working with your body and all of those repressed emotions. I want you to do all of it this year, because you don't need to waste another year with crappy mental health or feelings of disconnection and fragmentation, because you just don't need to do this. My whole philosophy of healing is that you can do so much in 1 year by sitting down for 1 or 2 hours per day, every single day. Maybe take a day off per week if you really want to. You think it's laborious and you think there's something better to be doing than healing your own soul and working through your own emotional fixations and repressions. Please do this. Please make this the year where you pick up the books I've recommended. 24 of the best books I've read after years of obsession. Open up a new tab, get at least 5 of them, 10 of them ideally. If you're an absolute devoted self-healer and self-actualizer, just get all 24 of them. It's going to cost you less than $400, even if you're buying new. You can get some of these secondhand for 3 or 4 quid. I'm not giving affiliate links. I don't tell you where to buy things. I just want to see this world become a more conscious place, and that's why I've got my therapy toolkit. I'm going to go through a rapid fire of the 12 categories. You can go back and print screen, but these are the 12 categories that you need to address. Trauma therapy, number 1. Number 2, inner child work. Number 3, parts work, inner child work being an aspect of parts work. Number 4 and number 5, somatic therapy and bioenergetics. Number 6, your love and relationship wounds. Number 7, your money wounds. Number 8, consciousness studies with Ken Wilber and spiral dynamics. Number 9, transpersonal psychology, the upper bands of human potential and human dysfunction. Number 10, energy healing and extrasensory skill development. Make sure that you're not doing extrasensory skill development before you've done somatic therapy, because otherwise you are almost certain to go into spiritual bypassing, spiritual narcissistic territory. Don't call yourself a shaman anytime soon if you've still got issues with your mommy and daddy. It's not the time for it. Number 11, we're looking at altered states and past life therapy, but more generally, it's a variety of altered states. You have to read Dark Night, Early Dawn yourself. And finally, after this marathon of a therapy video, Jungian therapy. This has been a roller coaster. My toolkit has been almost entirely decimated, but I hope you've enjoyed this gift of a video to hopefully give you the best possible fighting chance to really heal your mental health this year. You might even be in a great state, in which case focus on the more transpersonal psychology aspects of this frankly ridiculous video. But I hope you've had fun with me. I hope your cart is full of therapeutic reading, and I will see you on the next video. And if you're interested in how I teach at depth, you can click over here to watch my Shadow Work Library playlist, which has hours and hours and hours of high-level content. I'll see you next time. Over here.